First, I wanted to illustrate at the beginning of this video what I was illustrating in the last video. You have a real object. Imagine that it's a sphere that's colored black on one side and white on the other. The extent of the information on the two manifolds here will be that one, the left side, will only reflect the white half. The surface of the other one will only reflect the black side. On the surfaces, that's the surface state of information. Basically, these two symmetries, half symmetry, considered as a whole symmetry, reflect the full quality of the symmetry of the information in between. So we'll go beyond this now that I've shown that. However, we want to say whenever recursion starts, then this state of separate information here actually is altered in the recursion. In essence, if the right side reflects only the black side on the surface, the first row of recursion in the right side will actually be representative of the information on the surface of the left. And this alternate black to white to black to white to black through the recursion shows, and the same thing happened over here, the first row of recursion on the left side will actually be the right side surface volume of information, will be the first row of recursion. So it'll be white, black, white, black, black, white, black, white. Now remember, there is no white half on the surface of the right side. It doesn't exist. The only way to get this information to this side is via recursion. As soon as these come into relativity, then these half symmetries are continually propagated one way and the other, whereby information is going to and from each side, to and from each other. Okay, so to continue here, this means that regardless that their surfaces are reflecting two sides of this Q sphere, on the surface is not the same. When recursion ensues, the information of the right or the left side is sent to the right side and is expressed within the interior of the right side, even though the information on the surface of the left side is not the same as the information on the surface of the right side. So again, entanglement is showing how information can get from 2 points, even though they're separated, can actually get and be established at 2 different points at the same time. And of course, if the virtual recursive function is an infinity, then the information on the left side can be found throughout the right recursive matrix infinitely. So that information travels down the string on the right side, and the right side information can travel down the string alternately from membrane to membrane down the left side. Now, this is very strange, and we're going to come to understand the full implications of this whole system as described. So one side will be exactly the opposite of the other side at any and all stages of opposite recursion. In other words, the first row of recursion on the right side will be the information from the surface of the left side. The first row of recursion on the left side will be the information found on the surface of the right side. And this will continue. This alternation between real information to information from the other side will continue down the infinite lattice, or the recursive mechanism happen on both sides. But it doesn't matter if the information is on the surface or if the information is found in their recursive interiors. All points of information, all representations of the information on the surface and recursively is actually originating or derived from the Q, the open part of the string, the information in the open part of the string, as the recursive information is derived from both the surfaces as well as surface-to-surface sharing of information back and forth. So as these two matrices exist, and matrices we're confining as being the recursion, the matrix does not exist on the surface. The matrix is separate from the surface and virtual. The information on the surface of the mirror is a real image, a real reflected image of the real object. Everything following these first or prime surface points of information are virtual. And so as these two matrices exist relative to each other, any actions, speed, spins, motions, revolutions, renormalizations, expansion, contraction, etc., that occur in their virtual interiors respectively is exactly balanced or counterbalanced by the opposing side of the string. And if this doesn't scream equilibrium as occurring on the whole of the string, nothing else does. So in essence, if the real object or light source as shining to the surface of the mirror of right goes farther away from the right mirror, the light circle on will expand. However, as it's going away from right, it's going toward the left mirror. So as the information on the right side expands, the information on the left side contracts. And mathematically, we can determine that the expansion and contraction happening on both sides is happening at the same rate. In other words, the rate or the speed of expansion on this right mirror will be exactly the rate or speed of contraction on this mirror. And we're seeing a balancing taking place between these two linked, entangled informational strings, sides of strings. They counteract, they balance, and it equals out constantly. No matter what's done in the recursive interiors of the string, it's determined by the distance between the real object and either or mirror at any time, and any rates of change that happen according to how fast or slow the real object is moving, or how many units or how many steps. All that's reflected in the recursive part of the string as a perpendicular flow of information, a space-time continuum, an arrow of time to the right, an arrow of time to the left that can be expanded or contracted, lengthened toward the future, back toward the past of the surfaces. All that's happening on both sides of the string. So both matrices exist simultaneously. If you have an object shining in front of or sitting in front of an isolated mirror that is not relative to another, it doesn't have a matrix. And the same is true. If you remove right from left, no matrices exist. If you remove left from right, no matrices can exist. So we're showing that this information string cannot exist unless this mathematical imperative is in the equation. And this imperative is bespeaking the process of recursion. So both manifolds are existing simultaneously relative to each other. The information here is existing simultaneous with here, despite that it's two different directions, two different events, two different information frameworks. They're sharing a relativity, and they're alternate. In essence, we could refer to them as alternate universes, alternate information systems that are connected or linked in some way. And I'm showing that the string that I'm referring to is not little squiggly lines, is not little abstract strings. It's representing linked, connected points, reflective points. The string that I'm referring to reflective and recursive strings. Information that is both reflectively, surface represented, as well recursively extended into a virtual timeline. So the precision of the entanglement of both matrices is distinct and can be observed and measured accurately at any given time during any changes. Coming up with instrumentation to where we could set an object in front of two mirrors that has a camera on both opposing sides of the object, and being able to video at the same time. Whenever the object moves close to this mirror, we can show over here what's happening to the miss mirror, and to show in this other video frame from the other camera what's happening to this. We'll see that those changes are always proportionate to each other. They're changing relative to each other and relative to the directional changes, speed changes, motion changes of the real object in between. So this shows that the fundamental limit to recursion, or the fundamental precision of the entanglement as on the surface or recursive, exists on the surface of both manifolds. In other words, all the information that's happening recursively has a limit. That limit began on the surface when it was first implanted, and then another mirror came into relativity to you. Not only did that recursive function begin at the surface, but if there's any potential of a limit to that precision, then that limit would mean that the arrow of time on the right side would be contracting back to the state of the surface. So the limit represents the topology of the field itself, and all the measurements, all the observations that we could make